Hello, everybody. Welcome. John, did you just start the stream by sitting up and adjusting your Star Wars shirt to camera?
Yep.
You monster.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of 10 Forward Weekly. My name is Mike Fatum. I am your community manager, also known as Ambassador Kel. I am joined this week by three wonderful gentlemen, 2/3 of which are bald. It's Jesse Hiding, John Hegner, and Ryan Levitt. Hello, everyone. Welcome.
Howdy.
And now we fight.
I mean, okay. I can load up a PvP map if you want. We can show all the players how bad we all are at PvP.
Mr. Hegner, I'll see you in the ring.
Oh, brother!
How much money do I have to give you guys to make a Gorn Wrestling League mission chain?
0? I'll do that one for free.
You heard it here, folks.
Okay, Ryan isn't frozen. I thought he was frozen for a second. Anyway, a couple of housekeeping things before we get started. Number one, thank you all very much for your patience yesterday. I know it was kind of a rocky day on all three platforms, but the team pushed through it, and we appreciate everybody who was supportive and lovely on social media and everywhere else. Thank you very much. And secondly, there's a new website for Star Trek Online. You might have seen the post about it. This also means that the official forums for a while had a new design. They have another new design today because I went rogue and hacked into the code. So if you were avoiding them because they were bright white, go and look at them again and see if they are a little more tolerable for you vision-wise. And we'll see if we can do a better design than I am capable of later on.
What's the new website?
The new website is playstartrekonline.com. You'd think it would
that's
just be
easy
the
to remember.
address of the old website, but it isn't. The old website is still up. Do I know why that is? No, I do not. Looney Welsh, that is an interesting question that I'm not going to repeat because of legal issues. I think if you were going to do that, I wouldn't tell us. Let me just put it that way. All right. So, folks, a couple of folks are asking about console stuff from the new updates, like the Legendary Jem'Hadar or the California or Gamma Recruitment. That all will be information on that will all be coming very soon before the end of the month. So. Keep on to that. But right now, we are here to celebrate the launch of our newest story update, Stormfall, with three of our fabulous content designers, all of whom are senior, you may have noticed, who talked to us a little bit, folks, about the process for coming into Stormfall. I know originally one of the episodes was an anniversary episode and then got pushed back, and so we ended up making this a 2-episode season. How did that get started?
So everything we wanted to do with Redshift was originally both Redshift and Blue Shift put together, which is why the naming schema was so similar. But the episode ended up being a little bit too long to fit in the amount of time we had to do it, so I split it into two so that we could finish it post-anniversary. A lot of that was due to us focusing on the Inquisitor play through, like playing as your mirror self, and Jupiter Station and all that just became sort of like a big hen house to play in, and we kept expanding on it because it was so much fun playing as the Inquisitor and getting all the banter going on between you and Killy and Janeway and Camarque. So and then after Redshift, we booted up into Blue Shift, and Ryan took on the calling, and we coordinated on those to make sure that they worked well together.
Jeff Weber wanted to know who put in the hacker references in the names of the exocomps. I think that was originally on the TFO. That was John? Nice.
Yep.
Well done.
Yeah, so those three first show up in Operation Wolf, which also takes place on Terran Space Dock, but it is a holographic simulation training scenario that Starfleet basically puts Admiral Lita in charge of running, because they're like, hey, you've got all this intel on the Terrans, let's make some use of it. So she programs up that training scenario, which is why there's like some similarities there, but we didn't want it to be identical.
Yeah.
So that she's like close to like what that training scenario would be for, but nobody anticipated having to do what you have to do in Blue Shift. So
Yeah. That's cool. So, Ryan, what was the process like for the calling? Was that originally an episode you pitched? Oh, we can't hear you. Push to talk, buddy.
Sorry. Yeah, no. The calling was entirely pitched by me. That was actually supposed to be the only, season 26 episode. So, I already knew that it was coming after Blue Shift and was continuing the story from there.
Cool. So, what was your thought process behind the initial pitch?
So our main goal was showing people, that V'ger, or I guess specifically the other, was here, and we really wanted to have a lot of fun with that. Beyond that, I mean, a lot of it is also preparing for what's coming up next, which obviously we don't talk about future content, but that is kind of where we I knew where we were, I knew where we were supposed to be, and I got to kind of just fill in what happens in between.
Nice. All right, and then Jesse, for this season, you were kind of the mastermind behind the tutorial, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about that. I know we've been talking about remastering the tutorial experience for years, and fans seem to really love what we've done with it. What was the initial thought process, and how did you go break down through it to remake that experience?
The initial impetus was, hey, we just redid the Klingon tutorial experience, and it looks really good and plays well. And we want the 2409 tutorial, which is a large chunk of our player base, to feel just as good. So we went through and said, okay, we want to make sure that we find any lingering little bugs or problems that have existed in the tutorial and fix those. And then our main goals were to smooth the experience so you never get lost. We never want the player to be in a position where they're not sure what they're supposed to be doing next or where they go, especially at the very beginning of the tutorial where you're new to this game. We have pretty good data that says that a lot of Star Trek Online players don't play other video games. There's plenty who do, but there's a chunk of our player base who just play this game because they like Star Trek. And so when they're first figuring out how to move around on a map and what icons mean and how you use a mini map, these are things that we can't take for granted for them. They might not necessarily have all of that sort of experience. So we got to be very clear about how you get from here to there to the other place and do the things that we want you to do. The other piece that we really wanted to revisit was the story elements. The previous version of the tutorial prior to this had you first fighting against some Klingon elements because it's introducing parts of the Klingon Federation War that's in place at the beginning of 2409, and then switches to fighting against the Borg. And of course, we always want to have the Borg in there because, I mean, they're the big quintessential threat species of Star Trek in the era. So we said, okay, well, we're going to be remastering a bunch of our older Klingon War episodes, and we've deactivated a few of them while we're, going to take time to figure out what we're going to do to rework those. So let's focus on just one antagonist, the Borg. So that required us to redo all of the material that involved fighting against the Klingons, and instead go through and say, okay, you're fighting against the Borg. How does that happen? Why? Where do these encounters occur? How does the player not get destroyed by them? What are they after? But it allowed us to also make some changes to some of the story beats about the fate of Captain Taggart and what happens to where you go inside the ship while you're fighting off the enemy boarding parties, how you deal with them. So that was ultimately the goal. Working on tutorials is very much one of those elements where if you do a good job, people don't notice because you made it so that things aren't sticking out. Things look like they're in place. Things are working right. Things are obvious about what you're supposed to be doing. But the story changes are definitely noticeable. The beats of what happens to your ship and your crew and how you go about rescuing your ship. We put in some strong connections with First Contact, the quintessential Borg movie for Star Trek, and hopefully players are enjoying making new Delta recruits to try out that experience.
Yeah. All right. Um, cool. Well, why don't we dive in here? First of all, Dark Mom Consortium, thank you for the raid. Very nice to see you folks.
Raid.
Raid. Raid. So yeah, let's dive on in. I am gonna play as my boy Cogtash today.
What willpower not to just instantly pick Ham Sandwich as your character?
Yeah, you're right. But Ham Sandwich is not a level 65 character that I have kitted out the way I like. She's a meme character I made for the stream.
Hmm.
But she's so good.
She is the best. You're right. Okay, we're gonna replay Blue Shift here. A couple people have asked about the hold on, sorry. A couple people have asked about the game client quit unexpectedly error. We are looking into it. I was told that a what's called a Franken build was being made. Turning up my audio because apparently it's hard to hear me. That should be fixed soon. Hopefully, it's affecting a lot of people, and we want to get that fixed as soon as humanly possible. No, we are not sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends. They don't have that much money. No, we don't. We don't have that much people. While we're loading this up, Trexpert wants to know, Ryan, is the calling a nod to Dragon Age?
No.
Okay, short answer. Just gonna skip through the dialogue so y'all can. Okay, so here we are at the beginning of Blue Shift. So talk me through the start of this episode and the hangout with Admiral Janeway.
Yeah, so as expected, this was initially intended to be out with Redshift as well, so it's picks up immediately where you left off, which is you have from Redshift gone through sort of the attack that Marshal Janeway and the Inquisitor and Killy and Camarque had done on Jupiter Station, have coordinated with Janeway to settle on a rescue plan, and now we've sort of assembled everybody to get that rescue plan into order as fast as possible. So the Turing and the Juno, who were two ships that were crippled by the Inquisitor's attack in Act 4 of Redshift, have completed their major repairs. They want a little bit of revenge, so they are coming along with you. We've moved in some of the defenses that you see in the TFO, which is Iupiter Aratus, to match up with sort of the current state of Jupiter Station, and you are now going on a bold rescue mission into Terran Mirror Universe space. And the plan thus far is you're going to give the Terrans as good as they gave you by bloodying their nose at their Jupiter Station, and that is all a distraction plan from what your true purpose is, which is to get Ilea back, who is on board the Terran space dock.
I'm on fire. Sorry.
I mean that's a normal state for you.
Hey, I've gotten better at this game, sir. So I think it was Vassier was asking in chat. I think this is an interesting question. What's the writing process on episodes like this like? Is it, do you guys get a general outline of what you're supposed to do and then turn around and turn it into a story of the mission? Are there a lot of meetings beforehand where you hammer out what things should be?
We do a lot of sort of very broad 30,000 foot view over what the entire, and I'm completely brain farting on this, but what do we call the whole collection of episodes that constitute the story arc?
I mean, like
arc,
the macro plot.
Sorry, what?
A story arc is what it's the official
Yeah.
term we use.
Right.
But macro plot works too, right?
Yeah, I've worked on so many MMOs that have different names for it. I can never keep them straight. So yeah, so we have a 30,000-foot view, many moons before we even start on the story arc, and then we draw straws or have a knife fight to see who gets to work on which episode or who gets to work on which TFO. And then from there, we work with the writer Paul to settle on sort of the overarching story beats in a given episode, and then from there, we're sort of left to our own devices to sort of flesh it out, play through it, devil's advocate it, waterproof it, et cetera, through many play tests, make sure that the story is making sense, that there aren't confusing bits, that all the story beats are getting hit that need to happen. And as long as those are getting hit, then we have playtime, as long as we're within our VO budget.
And so you guys write the dialogue originally when you're working on the missions, and then Paul comes in and either does an edit pass or a full rewrite, depending on what's needed, right?
More or less, yeah. Some stuff we will hand off directly to him if he has a really strong idea of what he wants in there. Otherwise, it's sort of expected that we'll either do a full pass or just sort of a loosey-goose pass and let him sort of fill in the blanks if needed. Sometimes that's because maybe we don't necessarily have as strong of a grasp on the lore of a given thing as somebody else in the team might.
Sure. So is the exocomp dialogue mostly you or mostly Paul?
That's a good question.
It's been so long.
Most of it is mine. Every so often, so I will sometimes write very cheeky things just to very quickly define like where the borders are of what is and is not possible, and then. So I'm fine having my dialogue kind of stripped down or removed and replaced with something else. But for the most part, I think the exocomps, because they are kind of a comedy relief, or at least a stress reducer with their amusing banter, kind of went unchanged.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh yeah, that's totally wrong. Okay, now you should be able to hear it, and now it's probably too loud. I'll turn it down a bit. So you mentioned you worked on the original Operation Wolf, which was the first map to use this Terran Earth space dock thing. And you mentioned that when we were creating this map, that we wanted to make sure, and this mission, that we wanted to make sure that we were making it different enough from Operation Wolf that it didn't feel like it were just running through the same thing. So how did you approach that?
I mean, first thing that I did is I said, let's start at the end instead of at the beginning. So we start you in the shuttle bay instead of somewhere else. And just doing that alone, I feel made it start completely different. You're going up instead of going down, like just little subtle things like that. But also your arrival cutscene is different. You're not beaming in, you're landing a runabout. And that was all. Like the idea of starting in the shuttle bay actually fueled the idea of like, oh, that's how we're going to get you to Jupiter or to Terran space dock, is you're using a commandeered Terran runabout, because we wanted to land you in the shuttle bay rather than beam you in, because we were like, we could do like some massive space battle, but like, does that make sense? Like, how long would Voyager survive?
Yeah.
And so having sort of the subterfuge come in, we definitely didn't want to have you like impersonating a Terran, because that's a little bit too much like acting like a Nazi. Yeah, so playing as the Inquisitor is different than you pretending to be one.
Yeah, that's very true.
So little subtle differences like that. But then, we knew that we were going to get new kit pieces that we didn't see in the TFO, which is the second half of this map. So sort of running through the known stuff in pieces parts. So you basically go shuttle bay to operations and then do a little bit on the concourse just to get to the turbo lift here in a minute. And then we get you into the new kit stuff with the cool boss arena and things like that. And then we beam you back to the shuttle.
Nice. So you mentioned how often, or how in this case, depicting or picking the shuttle bay as a starting point sort of helped define the story. For either Jesse or Ryan, whoever wants to jump on it, how often do you think that's the case, rather than like the needs of the mission dictating the story, where something cool comes up because you thought because you needed something like to start in the shuttle bay.
Ian?
I mean, it definitely is a like it's not super frequent, but it's also not super infrequent. Like we have the needs of the story that we are building around, and a lot of the time there can be a conversation that it doesn't really matter kind of what we want to say in there, because there's lots of specific lore points that need to be made, and Paul is great at putting that all out there. But we do sometimes come up with a little side thing we want to do, and we'll have to make the story work for it.
Cool. Neat. Arc Hammer, the server instability and rubber banding from launch was due to a partition issue and should be mostly fixed now. If you're still having issues, please contact support. Also, to the person, I forgot who they were, on Facebook, who was asking about the 10 free Phoenix prize packs on console, those are coming. Unfortunately, they didn't come with the launch of the Phoenix changes. That was a mistake, but they will be coming in the next major console update, which the date I was just given is May 24th. So, John, a lot of the stuff that we do in these kind of missions is stand in an area and defend the area while monsters or enemies spawn and come at you. How do you find the right balance for something like that in terms of like how many enemies are coming at you and how it feels right?
So the short answer is we're probably never going to make it feel right for everybody. Just based off of the fact that we're an MMO, level ranges are all different. You might have better gear than another person. So it'll oftentimes feel a little easier, a little harder, and in some cases a lot easier or a lot harder. But we try to aim for it never being a lot harder for people who are on the low end of the gear, especially for missions. TFOs, all bets are off. But yeah, so we get that way with a lot of playtesting and working with QA to sort of, hey, everybody come in with suboptimal characters and see how this feels, and then come in with the optimals. And
QA's optimal characters are crazy.
Yeah, and they tend to play at a little bit of a higher level than the average dev.
Yeah.
So yeah, because they know all the tricks and well, I mean, their job is to play the game all day.
Yeah.
So
they better be good at it at that point.
Yeah. But yeah, but really what we're looking for is like define, and this is like, you'll hear this a lot from design, is like, was it fun? What's the definition of fun? And I think one of the easiest ways to define that is like, well, was it not fun? i.e., were you just dying nonstop? Did you feel like you were doing nothing or were bored for a long period of time? As long as we cover a lot of that, then I think we cover the majority of cases and sort of dial it into about the right balance.
Cool. Somebody was asking about the issue we had yesterday with the map transfer failure, which I actually do kind of want to explain because it was an interesting one. It's not a bug we've ever seen before. Jesse, I have a vague idea of what happened, but I think you have probably a stronger one.
Which bug?
The map transfer bug that was happening on Blue Shift yesterday. It was one that you couldn't catch at AL0 because it was some other kind of expression.
That's actually one that John dug into and then explained to me.
So John, go for it.
I can dig into that as much as you like. What would you like to know?
Dig in. So basically, I know it was a weird one because it was something that QA couldn't actually test. It was something at access level.
So it in part, it was a goof on my part. But
I wasn't trying to.
All of our
sorry.
No, but all of our systems. All of our systems should have caught it, but for some reason didn't. So the true bug was that our safety nets didn't catch it. And basically it was, I put a 0 where there should have been a 1. And where I put that 0 was since the space map after this map that you're going to was childed off of the social space map. It had a require statement that was looking for only basically Fed aligned characters can get into this map. So QA long ago had reported, hey, I can't get in here with a Klingon. And I was like, oh, it's because that requires a statement. And instead of me blanking it out, which was causing errors for other reasons, I put a 0 in when I should have put a 1. Because the 1 in a requires expression would say this is always true. A 0 would say this can never be true. So that's why people couldn't get into the map, is because the ability to get into the map is never true.
But it was something.
And all of our testing allowed us to get in there, despite the fact that there was a critical error that would not allow any normal player to get in. So,
why did the testing allow people to get in there? Because I remember reading about it. It's kind of, this stuff is kind of fascinating to me. So I hope it doesn't feel like I'm like, what did you do, John?
So my guess is that errors in that section of our checks would probably cause a crash of the client, and so they just made it so that errors like that don't pop up for you if you are a dev. That's my guess.
I think it's less about crashing as much as it's, if I need to go work on a particular map, I shouldn't have to change characters in order to go in there and make changes. So as devs, we can easily get into any map.
Yeah.
Oh no, that makes more sense. Yeah.
Yeah, but the funny thing about it was that it was, if I remember correctly, it was set to. I remember hearing about this yesterday. The setting it to the 0, the thing we did, set it so that it was like normally it would be, we would be trying to get access level 0, which is the lowest level that players have to be able to access the map. What this setting that accidentally happened, and this is a software bug, not a John mistake, was looking for whether the account had access level. So QA accounts apparently have a higher access level, even if the character they're playing on has a lower access level. It's not something that's ever come up before, as we mentioned. So QA accounts who were trying to play the same way a player would on the same access level wouldn't have encountered the issue. Which I think
there's certain stuff that goes on under the hood when you log in with a cryptic account from a cryptic internal network that causes your character to automatically get set with certain privileges. So this was one of those situations where it was a perfect storm. I want to take this also as an opportunity to mention our QA team works their tails off. And if you think that, Cryptic doesn't QA any of their stuff, that's why it's buggy, you should see the stuff that didn't go live because they caught it.
Yep. The fact... Oh, wow, I'm on fire. The fact... Or actually, on lightning. The fact is, there are certain things that just can't be found until there are thousands of people playing content. And certain reasons that things slip through the cracks. But yes, our QA team is incredibly hardworking and does a wonderful job. And yeah, we as Turquoise C just mentioned in chat, we have the our QA lead, Mac, immediately added a test for this particular issue into their test plan so that it will never happen again, because they'll always be testing for it. So yeah, back to the mission for a little bit. John, tell me about this boss fight and the design.
How does that agony feel?
It feels so agonizing, but
yeah,
you know, I'll sacrifice my own life to get this shield down.
You made a bold choice there to make the Inquisitor vulnerable. While the Inquisitor is vulnerable, you, my friend, are dead.
Well, you know. Whoops. I have a minigun, so I'm not sure how much that matters.
Yeah, so this boss fight, we went back and forth on whether to have Killy and Camarque in the room as well, but we felt like if the fight really needed to focus on the Inquisitor, this was their fight, or your fight against the Inquisitor, and having a bunch of other people that you had to trade fire with that were also sort of trying to wrestle for the spotlight didn't feel well. So we we put Killy and Camarque behind controls, and we're like, well, what are they controlling? Camarque is a shield master, so we decided that she would be operating a invulnerability shield, courtesy of your recent encounter with Marshall Janeway's nonsensical Borg shielding. Camarque is a quick learn, and Killy is all about torture and agony because she likes to have fun that way, I guess. So since we're sending you to a security station where they are interrogating Ilea in some ways,
she's unconscious, so you can't really interrogate her. But yeah,
they would have access to an agonizer there. So we decided to give her a tooled up Killy special agonizer. And then from that, it was like, well, how do we want the gameplay for that to be? Like, the shield is pretty obvious, makes the Inquisitor invulnerable. But what about the agonizers? Does it just, does it cause like an agony field to envelop the room and slowly shrink in? Nah, that's one of the Inquisitor powers. Does it, just put a splat down somewhere? And we came up with the idea of sort of doing a maze. So if you'll notice, sort of like Tetris-style pieces of the floor will get hit with splats, and then we'll have a three-dimensional sort of agony cage sort of appear in each one of those squares. And then I went through the laborious, insane process of marking out every single one of those squares, hooking them up to a complicated FSM to ensure that I have job security, and then set it all on timers and random rolls in the background and stuff in order to determine some interesting patterns. And I've seen quite a few test playthroughs where the maze pieces that got selected made a perfect storm of indecision on the part of the player, where they're like, well, I have to get to that console to turn them off, but I can't get to that console because there's an agonizer between me and them, but I could jump over this in order to get around it, but by the time I do that, then I'm in line of sight of the Inquisitor, and oh god, they just put down an orbital strike. And,
or you get my choice of, I'll just die.
Yeah.
I'll just hit the console and die.
Yeah, and ultimately it comes down to, like, moment to moment we want the players making choices. If they're not sitting there, like, if at the bare minimum they're not sitting there, should I continue standing still now?
Yeah.
Then we've done something wrong. If their play experience is I stand in one spot and I just hit one, like, you're not really playing a game at that point.
Yeah.
Granted, there are some very powerful builds that you could probably get away doing that, especially if you are used to playing on advanced and decide to play on normal. But yeah, so you run up to a console and it looks free and clear. You're like, awesome, I'm gonna do the thing, and then you get the warning splat, and now you have a choice. Do I stay here and take the damage? Do I jump out of it and save myself, and then run to go disable the agonizers? Or in your case, you're like, nope, I didn't even get to the console before the agony field was up. I'm just going to run through the agony field and tank it.
Yep. Turns out you can't tank those very well.
Hey, you succeeded. And, maybe if you'd had a heal on or something, you might have been able to combat roll or leap over the railing and gotten out of there, which would have been a cool cinematic moment for you.
Yeah. So there we go.
Well, now that we have our leap over the railing animation.
I'm so excited for it. Oh, that cutscene is the best. A couple people are asking about the loadout bugs that popped up yesterday. We have a lot of folks who are looking into that right now. Hopefully we'll have a fix. Tomorrow or Friday, we plan on having updates on some of the major issues later this week. Alyssa CG says, I like the new launcher. Did our new launcher go live? Because I haven't seen that yet. Yeah, if you had Mud's time device, it wouldn't be a problem. You're absolutely right.
Time's a luxury we don't have. Every Terran in range is closing in on us.
I guess if you had Mud's time device, time would be a luxury you have.
Yeah.
Following Voyager in, you've got your 6 Admiral.
Teleport to the back of the group, open fire on everybody.
Like you do.
Take it to the bank. Blast.
Oh, and another aspect that may not be immediately apparent to me in the Inquisitor fight is the Inquisitor's powers and loadout change based on which class you are. So just like when you play as the Inquisitor, your abilities are slightly different. Same diff with the Inquisitor.
I love the way the Voyager moves in that shot. so cool. This
I
whole
like
this whole sequence is really cool. We need to just get Weston to make a short film sometime.
Right?
He has no time for that, but
Well, fan film policy allows 15-minute Star Trek films, so
yeah, there you go. We can do that. God of Rage wants to know if any of the actors' lines are improv. I know the answer to that is no. We get them all. Although they do have some leeway in the recording booth, I think. If they're like, oh, you know, my character would say it a different way or something. But I do want to call out how much fun both Mary Wiseman and Chase Masterson are clearly having with this, these characters.
I would say
wish we could
Kipley
put-
as well.
Yeah, that's true. I wish we could put the two of them in a room and just let them yell at each other in character for a while.
that's what convention panels are for.
Yeah, it's true. Oh my god, if I could get away with that.
I mean, there's a lot to be said about getting to play an evil version of a good character. Like, talk
Yeah.
about chewing the scenery, license to chew the scenery. But yeah, so yeah, we give them the lines, and like you said, sometimes like speech patterns and things like that will necessitate like little additions here or there, or pauses in speech, things like that. As far as I'm aware, I'm not sitting in the voice booth with everyone, but as far as I know, like they don't do like a bunch of takes where it's like, hey, let me give you my version,
Yeah.
or let me ad lib something.
Yeah, a lot of times they just, you know, as good actors, they just do the lines that they're given.
Yeah. Well, and you know, we have a lot of lines for them, so and they got to chew through them.
Yeah.
At certain times.
And between chewing through the lines and chewing through the scenery, they're full.
Yeah.
Very, very full.
I was in a recording session with Kipley Brown early when she was doing Kumarkit when we first added the character, and she really had a lot of fun with that character. And she's not afraid to experiment. She was like, "Oh, let's try this. I sound British. I sound like Dracula.
Yeah, the original Kumarke voice was Dracula, right?
Yeah, it was. You know, we had a specific idea of, well, what if we do this with all the vowels, and then you sound Romanian, and suddenly Kumarke wants to suck your blood, and that wasn't great, but she rolled with it and was able to come up with a really good voice for that character.
All right.
Yeah, it's not Draculan unless it's from the Dracula region of the Carpathian Mountains.
Otherwise, it's just sparkling vampirism.
Yes.
Only at Twilight.
Someone on Twitter pointed out how much they love the idea of Marshall Janeway patrolling the universe, being a Terran pirate and rebelling against the Empire. And yeah, I think we need to make a whole like comic series or like book about that. That sounds great.
There were a couple of questions I wanted to answer that I saw on the stream
Sure.
there. One player asked how come the old Beta Quadrant Federation patrols haven't been turned into part of the patrol system. Updating patrols to be part of that system is not free. There's a lot of work under the hood in connective tissue in order to make things accessible through the patrol launcher, and to have their little icon in sector space and so on, to change the rewards so that they scale properly, give you the right things, give you the bonuses for space patrols and whatnot. And two, a lot of those patrols are really old. And as a result, we would want to go through, update the maps, update the gameplay in them, make them more interesting and more modernized before we do that. Number two, someone was asking, what's up with all the dudes on the captain's table? I just investigated that bug. So there's an ancient arcane way that data was set up on some of our early maps at launch, and as a result of stuff, very technical, some of that data is no longer linking correctly, and as a result, some characters have lost their costume information and are therefore getting these default checker box humanoid character
Crash test
outfits.
dummies.
Yep.
Yes. So we hope to get that hammered away as part of our upcoming fix of bugs.
They were synths all along.
Yeah. So was I.
It was since all along. Alright, over to Voyager we go. To the comfiest looking ready room in Star Trek.
I don't like leaving
Alright,
these
and this is this part of the mission is what you guys typically call the yub yub, right? after the Ewok finale from Return of the Jedi.
Apparently, it's Yub Nub,
Yub Nub. Okay.
but I always thought it was Yub Yub as well.
It's because it comes from the song they sing at the end. Yub nub, Echok yub nub.
I actually heard that song for the first time the other day.
I had to sing that song when I was in school
Why?
because I was a kid.
Come on, Mike.
but
How come you're
why?
not How come you're not chastising Jesse for that when you chastised me for this?
All right. Let me throw in some questions from chat before we dive into the calling. Let's see. Vassier wants to know what was the original thought process behind giving the player the ISS Defiant, or rather the anti-player, I guess, the ISS Defiant.
So when we were exploring the idea of fighting the mirror player, we started at like, what would be the most amazing thing, which is obviously impossible, which would be to like copy your loadout, et cetera, and it was like there's no way we're going to be able to do that. And even if we could, it's like, and then you switch loadout. Does it loadout switch? Like, do you equip yourself with like all nerfed items, and then once the Inquisitor has been quote unquote spawned, you switch to all your top end gear, and therefore they've been nerfed. So there was just a laundry list of issues of not to do that. Once we settled on, okay, there's one for each class, then the question came like, and what do we do about the starship? Because obviously top tier would be like, well, we copy your starship loadout, but same problems. So then it was like, okay, what starship exists that we could bee critter you into that would be cool? We shopped around a couple ideas. We had talked about the Enterprise, but it was like, no, we've already got captains for the Enterprise, and that's another story arc that we go into in the calling here. And so we were looking at like the big name ships, and we were like, well, we don't know what's technically going on with the ISS Defiant, so let's give it to the Inquisitor. That seems pretty cool. Also, we were coming out with the new, what was it called? What was the class called? Does anyone remember? Was it the Adamant?
Yeah.
Yeah.
6.
So we were coming out with the Adamant at the same time, so it was just sort of like, hey, yep, that's the obvious choice. That way it also explained why when you have multiple Inquisitors, they each have their own ship, and Jesse did the wizardry to make each of them have their own name, which was cool.
That is neat. Let's see. We haven't mentioned a release date for the Legendary Vesta, but look for more information on that soon. Was the USS Khonshu at the end of that mission a direct reference to Moon Knight or just a happy accident?
I mean, so the Khonshu was originally in Firewall.
Oh, okay.
So like that was the ship that DeSoto flew then, and at the end of that episode is lost and potentially destroyed.
Oh, that's part. This is part of the calling. I thought they were asking about. Okay, cool. Please continue.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So in the calling, we find out that he's actually alive and fine. Because
everything's fine here. How are you?
We're all fine here. How are you?
I mean, he is competent at his job, and he has a ship with cloaking ability, and all that. So no, it had nothing to do with Moon Knight.
Okay.
Come on, we know he's now DeSoto the White rather than DeSoto.
Also, there was one other question I saw earlier that I figured we could answer. That was about how do we decide like what ships or NPCs are in an episode. And a lot of it comes down to either who would make the most sense to be somewhere. So, for example, in the calling, we're going to see a whole bunch of intelligence people, and it was like, well, we have a character who no one seems to really know much about. So obviously, all the different intelligence factions would want to know. And then when it comes to creating someone like brand new, I mean that we just get to have a lot of fun with and try and think of what would a ship be named after. For example, what I named the Brookhaven after Brookhaven National Labs, where one of the first video games was ever created, and lots of really amazing scientific discoveries happened, and it happened to also not be very far from where I grew up. So,
That's cool.
but the Khonshu was something that Paul named, because that's named after the Egyptian god. We've done tons of things. I mean,
If Paul named it, though, that might be a Moon Knight reference.
that could be.
It's
But also, John has had some fun with naming ships that some of them have made it into the game and some did not.
You guys killed me. So in Operation Riposte, I had a bunch of Federation vessels that are sort of saddling up alongside you in the major assault that you're supposed to protect during the third act. Or is it the third act or the second act? Anyway, it's been a while, but they get disabled and you have to wait for them to repair and stuff. And so I named a bunch of the ships, and then I realized that we were going to have and my brain is completely spacing.
Jason Isaacs.
Yeah, Jason Isaacs calling out like which ships were disabled and which ones needed help, etc. And I was like, oh, yes, I am going to name one of these ships Huitzilopochtli, which is a Central American deity. And just pronouncing that, I was like, man, that's going to be so much fun in the booth. And of course, I got shot down. So
oh, that's amazing.
And of course, with Procyon 5, I got to sneak in the USS Punxsutawney, because if we're going to be talking about a time loop, obviously we need to have a... So you guys keep asking me if something's a reference to something. This was a reference to Groundhog Day.
Yeah. I'm going to just try out this new Terran knife, if I can.
Way of the Blade.
Wait, where is it? Oh well, I'll find it later, I guess. All right, well, why don't we dive into the calling then, and see what we can see. And
yeah, and
tell me a little bit about the thought process at the start of this mission, Ryan. Like, so we're coming off of red shift and blue shift. This is not a weapon; it's a device.
It is a device.
Interesting.
It replaces your normal martial arts.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it would replace my Terran summon, but that's fine. We'll play with it anyway. What was the thought process behind this episode? How did this all start?
Okay, so we already had the stinger for Blue Shift figured out that Ilea was going to be waking up. So the main question is, well, who does she want to talk to and what does she want to say? And of course, the answer of who they want to talk to is always going to be the player, because this is a game about the player.
Yep.
And what do they want to say is, well, they need to first summarize the motion picture in case you haven't seen it, and then they need to get us, and then they need to let us know kind of what are the stakes. And so that's kind of like what the starting part is. We wanted to, so then the next thing is we want to deal with the summoning of the other, which is actually kind of why I called this the calling, is because they are literally calling the other to Pavo, but also there's kind of a bit of a destiny thing going on here, and that's why it's this is your calling to go and deal with it. So we ended up doing the Pavo ground map in order to kind of show what is happening and how why the other is going to be called to Pavo. Then, of course, we want to deal with we want Lita to get her ship back, because she's been playing nice so far, so she deserves at least something good to happen to her.
Yeah.
And it's also really unfair that Janeway loses her ship after and gets it back sooner.
Yeah,
that's true.
Rank half its privileges.
Well, it's the Janeway or the highway.
Yeah.
And then we wanted to actually have and then we want to have the other actually show up and
Wreck
give us
everything.
give us that the motion picture V'ger moment that I'm sure anyone who has seen the movie had a good chance to be like, oh my god, it's the sound.
Yeah, which some people picked out on the
Wow.
very first cutscene in the very beginning. By the way, I know we stuck that in on purpose, but like at the beginning of
Firewall.
Firewall, yeah, there's you hear that sound briefly, and a bunch of people were like, I recognize that. All right.
I love the fact that the signature sounds of V'ger were a custom built instrument called the blaster beam, which is 12 feet long.
What?
Yeah,
That
so
is
this guy
the coolest little fun fact.
made it's this weird metal framed thing that's a percussion instrument, and you can play it by striking it or dragging instrumentation along it in order to generate those sorts of sound effects, because it's right, from 1978, the cusp of synth coming into music and cinema, and so for whatever reason, the artist decided, I'm just going to make this thing. There's some YouTube videos you can watch of it being played, on a stage. It's huge.
Oh man, I would love to look that up. I love everything about that. All right. Well,
Would you
let's
say
continue-
that? Would you say that Stonehenge was in danger of being crushed by it?
All right. Interesting. Command is not talking to me. Fine. I don't know what I did to earn the silence treatment, but let's move on.
Yeah, I had heard that had happened. QA was looking into it today.
I'm gonna go the wrong way, just because I can. Somebody was talking on something unrelated to Star Trek unrelated to Star Trek Online the other day, about how much they missed, the cozy hallways of TNG. And I was like, "Come play our game! Look at these carpets!" Is it STO's headcanon that we're all fleet admirals, or is the player a fleet admiral and the other players are just officers? What do you all think about that?
I think that the main player, the team leader, is the fleet admiral, and everyone else are whether it's their boss or other people who are playing with them are pretty much a little bit lower rank.
Yeah, even in a federation with thousands of member worlds, having 100,000, a million, whatever fleet admirals running around is kind of ludicrous.
Yeah.
John?
I was going to say, you might want to check with the U.S. Navy to see how many superfluous admirals they have. Anyway. No, they draw
less than there would be if every member of STO was an admiral.
Probably right. Probably.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's why they draw straws and or have knife fights in order to determine who's in charge for a given mission.
All right, so we saw, Ryan, you were mentioning that we needed to have the whole backstory here, so this is all obviously a whole dialogue bit to explain, to explain the whole backstory if you hadn't seen the movie. Somebody was asking who was voicing Ilea here. I don't know. It sounds like it might be Lonnie, who is the woman who does
It's
a lot of
not
the voice
Lonnie.
casting for her.
It's not Lonnie.
Oh,
No.
okay.
No, they actually someone auditioned for her and nailed the voice. I don't know who though.
Okay, cool.
Paul's the person to ask for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, apparently in their audition they provided a wide array of options for how to do the voice, with more mechanical, less mechanical, longer, drawn out, faster speech pattern, and just completely knocked it out of the park with their audition.
That's great. I love when people in auditions can do that kind of thing. Like, oh, we'll take a direction. Yeah, a lot of people are saying they prefer to think of their characters only as captains. Me too. But it's up to your own headcanon. You could be an
If I
ensign if you
could
want.
turn back
Even if-
time, I would make the top rank captain and then make Admiralty a specialty tree that allowed you to get various team buffs and coordination benefits, and that unlocked the Admiral title. But
or Admiralty could have been a way to retire your character.
I was going to say you retire him, but then you can pull him out of retirement by, I don't know, going against the Prime Directive and getting busted back down to captain.
That would be great. Just bust the whole game down to captain, and then we do the bird and blow up everyone's dilithium, and we have a great game that everyone loves.
Well, Admiral, you're going to have to select a captain to undertake this mission, and your options are, sure, I'll select the captain, or punch the Admiral to get demoted to captain.
What would Kirk do?
What's that?
So what would Kirk do?
Yeah.
I wish one time we could go back to the idea of being able to summon your Admiralty ships to help you out in battle. I loved that idea. It's way too complicated.
yeah.
But, kind of a suitable follow-up question. Race Shadow wants to know if the new owners, that's Gearbox, for those of you who don't know, or Embracer Group above Gearbox, decided to invest more in STO, where would each of the guys here consider the ideal place to be to focus it? In other words, what would you prefer that more STO budget dollars were spent on if we suddenly got a cash flow and you were the one to decide where it goes?
Cloning technology to clone Weston.
Yep.
Yep, that's probably the best answer.
I suspect that the question is geared toward, like, would we get more missions, or would we get more ships, or would we get more patrols, or whatever? But
yeah, which is what they mean, but I kind of want you guys' insight.
Internally, that's not how it works. It's, if we got more, like, Embracer Group says to Gearbox, we should give Stowe more money, and Gearbox says, congratulations, we've increased your budget by this amount, then we would be looking at, okay, what sorts of people can we add to the team in order to get more stuff? And we would probably want to pick up another producer, another content designer, another effects artist, and another animator. And that's because a lot of us do multiple things that we create. John and Ryan and I all can make TFOs, patrols, missions, stuff that happens in sector space, battle zones. So it's not as simple as saying, like, oh, for X dollars we get more missions. It's for X dollars we get another designer. But if you have another designer, you got to have artists to create stuff to support them. You got to have animators to make cutscenes and custom animations. You got to have a producer to manage all of the timetables for all these things. So it's not as simple as, like, we will raise a bunch of money if Cryptic will then make this mission for us.
Yeah, exactly.
We've had that. Of course, all the QA necessary to test all the new content. And
right?
stuff.
The more stuff you produce, the more testing you need.
One of the things that the leadership of this team is very good about that I really appreciate is that they're more focused on putting out the amount we can put out and making it good rather than trying to put out more and more and more stuff.
Yeah, I've worked on that train.
Yeah.
I bear the scars.
Something big is going down on a planet called Pavo. Our Pavo, to be specific. We don't have a lot of time, so I'll get right to it if everyone's ready. Most Terrans fear Pavo.
People keep saying they can barely hear me. I'm not, or Trexpert does anyway. Is that a problem for everyone else? Let me know.
Years ago, they started brutalizing.
I hear you fine.
Turned
I
it
know.
into a monster.
I just read
Then a
lips,
monster.
which is difficult because you're kind of in shadow and have
When
your
Tilly went to the
full
Terran
luscious
graveyard,
beard going on. And
God damn it, I need to trim my beard. I get it.
Apparently I'm super loud. I learned it from Matt Colville, okay?
Let's see. Okay, it's... I know there's a way to get to device properties. Here we go. Okay, I'm going to turn my mic up a little bit. I like how I talked louder as I said that, as if it's forcing me to talk louder.
Well, you did turn your mic up a bit.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
Frankly, I gotta say that I'm surprised that it was this long into the stream before
Ryan dropped a
Ragnarsson
pun on
had
us.
his pun, yeah.
Yeah.
You're slipping, Ryan.
Okay, so that's an interesting line. Tilly mentioned that she wanted to go to Mirror Riza. What do y'all think Mirror Riza is like?
Have you met the Terrans?
Vegas?
Yeah, that makes
maybe
sense.
Dubai?
Just super commercialized.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's super commercialized and just really, really over the top. You can do anything you want, get anything you want. There are a million people who are more than happy to hungrily take whatever you have to offer in exchange for a moment of entertainment. And every alleyway is full of criminal enterprises and desperate people who...
So it's Space Tortuga.
Yeah.
Space Tortuga.
I was gonna say, Jesse. So you mean the City of Lies?
Yeah, that too. So that's kind of a deep cut, Ryan. You're gonna have to explain that for our viewers now.
Yeah, and for me.
So there's a tabletop setting and game called Legend of the Five Rings, and the City of Lies is not the capital of the Scorpion Lands, but one of their, if not their biggest city. And the Scorpion Clan are all like super dishonorable, completely untrustworthy people. So their alleyways are full of criminal enterprises and opium dens and not necessarily fully legit tea houses and whatnot.
So, we're back on Pavo, one of my favorite places, Ryan. When did we first decide we were going to head back to Pavo, and how that would be, how Mirror Pavo would be this wasteland of dust and snow and terror?
So we knew we were going to be so the decision to head back to Pavo happened before even I was told about the mission. So that was decided by Al and Paul when they were figuring out the overall plots. Just because if we're going to call for the other, why not use the biggest satellite satellite array or antenna array in the entire galaxy?
Universe. Yeah.
So that was the when and why. As for it becoming this desert planet, we knew we wanted the planet to not be the same as regular Pavo, because we know from Discovery, we know that like the Terrans definitely messed around with that planet, but we didn't know what they did. So, at first it was like, is it just going to be Pavo but red? And that was kind of boring and dumb, so the answer was no. So then it was like, okay, well, what about snow? Because, we're dealing with an Andorian, and Andorians love snow. But then you end up with issues like Bloom, where, we would be blinding our audience just by being on the planet. So we ended up going with more of a wasteland feel, and channeled things like the I want to say new, even though it's been around for a while now, Blade Runner movie.
Yeah, it's kind of cool, the like sort of permanent dust storm thing that's going on here. How was that accomplished?
So Gianna just started doing things, and she just magicked us all together.
Okay.
I don't understand how artists art. As far as I'm concerned, it's all witchcraft.
Well, there you go. That makes sense.
But between Gianna and Ian Richards, who's doing effects work, they just made this place look amazing.
Very cool. A couple people are saying SETI Alpha 5. Yeah, that's what you just said, actually, isn't it? Never mind. But it's a very apt comparison.
This is SETI Alpha 5!
Yeah, I remember back. I think it was the first episode I worked on here was season 15, where Killy shows up over Pavo.
Yeah.
I know in our meetings we talked about where it's like, and Terran or the Mirror Universe Pavo is angry.
Of course, we'd already established on Twitter that the Mirror Universe Pavo is where everyone is doing aerobics, but, you know, that's fine. Just stamp all over my contributions to the canon.
Okay.
You're doing aerobics. Maybe it took over their minds and is making them do aerobics.
We call it aerobics. They call it just trying not to die.
Yeah. There you go.
Running for your life is technically an aerobic exercise.
Yeah. A couple of folks have asked, been kind of repeatedly asked actually over the course of this, about the new bridge that got made for the tutorial that I know Nick spent hours lovingly working on stream, and whether that would be made into a player bridge. As far as I know, that is the plan, but that would fall on you guys getting some free time, right? Because it's a bit of a process to make something into a player bridge.
Yeah, it takes a little bit of work. It's a known quantity. It's just a matter of like, oh, where do we squeeze that in? But it is definitely something that can be squeezed.
Yes. We gotta get that other Klingon bridge in there too.
Oh, we didn't do that already?
I don't. We did the tutorial Klingon bridge, but not the one that got made for Lorel's ship.
Oh, okay. All right.
But by the way, so one thing that I got to do on this level that I really just enjoyed was setting up the different ambushes along the way.
Yeah, it's kind of cool being like, where are they going to come out from?
Well, so at first we were like, I went into it thinking like, the coalition has to be fighting, guerrilla warfare style. So they beat their chests, they throw bananas.
Oh.
But at one point, people were saying that it was actually it was too easy. So I started putting people in on both sides, so you're almost guaranteed to be flanked at some point. Started throwing in just lots of extra enemy reinforcements, and I think we hit a really good stride with the balance of this area.
Yeah, it's neat. He's always playing as the Inquisitor is interesting because he's obviously less powerful than me because my character's insanely powerful. And so it's kind of a fun challenge. But oh right, I need to actually back up and use a hypo here.
Well, he's also a known quantity. We know exactly what the Inquisitor can and cannot do, so we know that something is balanced for the character or not.
Yeah. Why can't I voice Inquisitor me? Because you're not SAG, Lapri.
I mean, you can voice them in your own head.
Yeah. But that actually is an interesting discussion. I don't know if we've talked about that yet. Did you guys originally consider having the Inquisitor not have a voice? When did it come up that, okay, we should voice this character but find an explanation for that?
Yeah, so that was the base point that we started with, is just like with the player, it's and obviously they won't be voiced, but then we were like, wait, hold on. You kind of got to have villains have their monologue time, and we need a voice in order to distinguish why they're different, and we actually have the opportunity here to do something like that because they're technically not your character, they're the mirror counterpart, so it's not truly violating the putting words in your mouth sort of protocol that we try to avoid. But then it was like, do we let people choose voice 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? No, that's a nightmare laundry list to have to go down, and it'll never satisfy everything. If we and then the idea came across with well, Tilly does mention that she thought she killed you if you're Discovery era, or no. I think just in general, she's like, "Oh, in my universe, I killed you."
I think it's only Discovery or possibly TOS that she says that. But yeah.
Yeah. And so we were like, "Well, okay, what if we have her just think that she killed you, but your character actually survived, but was mortally wounded, and then was saved by some medical procedure or something?" And it's like we could put a voice box in, and then we could modulate the voice so that it's obviously artificial. So we don't know what the original voice was. So the original voice of the Inquisitor does match what your expectations would be, but the modulator is changing it, and so that allowed us to have a male and a female sort of baseline that gets modulated up and allowed us to put words in your mouth.
Yeah.
Or mirror words in your mirror mouth.
Mirror words in your mirror mouth. Yeah. It's got to be an interesting experience. I'm just listening to Noah's dialogue here. It's got to be an interesting experience writing taunts for a good guy. We're so used to having the mustache twirly villains. Oh, hi Ray, you were right there. Was it different writing of a hero that you're facing?
I mean, is anyone truly good in the Mirror Universe?
Well, they're gooder, I guess.
But no, I mean, it was just, like even as a good guy, we made him a little hammy so that way, he would have his taunts and his moments that Lita can respond to, that Killy can respond to, and so forth.
Neat.
Yeah, also, you kind of want the taunts to be a little bit obnoxious so that you are encouraged to punch them in the face repeatedly.
Yes. You want the players to want to shoot them.
Yeah.
Of course, sometimes that gets out of hand then, and they want to shoot them too badly, and then the enemy has to escape at the end of the episode, and they hate us.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, of course, the biggest difference for making taunts for a good guy is that, like, he can't be mean about it.
I mean, he just said, like, a toddler puts up more of a fight than you. That's a little...
I mean, he can insult you, but he's not mean.
That's true.
Yeah, he basically has to be somewhere between Captain America and Spider-Man.
Yeah. Look at that vaulting.
It's me. Get us off this hellhole right now.
Man, that guy's not coming back in
No.
the next episode.
No. That guy is, all he is dust in the wind.
Mm-hmm.
Something needs to be done.
James Simon, can we get our characters and bridge officers a voice? It was something that was considered a long time ago, but it's ultimately, as John was mentioning before, you're never going to come up with a choice that satisfies everyone, and it's a lot of dialogue to get somebody to come in and record at this point.
Yeah, every episode basically, for every voice we have for the character, times the content is how many extra lines we have to do.
Yeah.
Is Noah cursed to always playing an Andorian with antenna damage? Yes.
Yes.
We actually have another character that is just the antenna that he plays.
Noah's been great, also. Very, very enthusiastic.
He's awesome.
Loves Trek so much.
I wish he'd been able to play the game yesterday.
Yeah, that's on us. But he's going to be playing again next week, so if you haven't gotten your full of streams today, folks, go watch Noah play. So.
Yeah, it's great. Wow, that's a lot of ships.
From a certain point of view.
Is this amount of ships because you're going to have a number of allies and we want it to feel epic? Ryan?
I mean, it wouldn't make sense for the Terran fleet to just be a couple of ships.
Yeah, that's true.
But also, yeah, you have a whole bunch of allies, so there has to be a suitable amount of enemies.
Oh, this is fun. I love dancing around giant fleets like this.
So one thing I really wanted to do, but we just didn't have it in the budget, was have it so that when Ray is trying to escape, that's when his antenna gets shot off. Like he actually would have started with two antennae, and one of them would have been blasted off like by the Inquisitor, but unfortunately, yeah, just couldn't
didn't
make
have
it
enough
happen.
time to make both models and get that animation set together, and yeah. Mar Hockman, good for you. Excellent job vaping the entire armada. What were they flavored? Because, you know, vaping. Anyway, okay. I'll show myself that.
Wah, wah.
Don't try to do my job, Mike.
Reminder, there's a lot of questions about bugs that we do have a forum page for reporting bugs. It does actually get looked at.
It does. QA and I look at it all the time.
There's a whole process.
And
That's
I made
the best way.
And I made the forums more legible just now. So
there's the Enterprise, just
sitting
looking
there.
at you.
So I have a question for you all that is not something that I expect you to have an answer for. I'm just curious about your writerly headcanon. Both of the times that somebody commandeers a ship and takes over on this mission, is the rest of the crew just like, yeah, this person seems cool? Like, or are they all still loyal to Janeway and Lita?
I mean, I think, yeah, sort of like the conversation that we'll see later on with when Lita gets the ship back is, you know, some people are probably going to get killed. Like there's probably going to be fighting and knifing and all that fun jazz. But, I mean, anyone who wants to survive is probably going to just be like, okay, yeah, I guess
cool,
you're now
on the ship
boss.
now. Yeah, I suppose that's true. A little easier in the mirror universe where people don't have, what's that called? Principles?
Yeah, I mean, their loyalty is to themselves more than anything.
Yeah, in my head, when someone like reclaims command of a ship, they probably wind up wiping out most of the senior staff, promote a few people who have been hungry to get a promotion, and then everyone else is just like, okay, well, I guess this is the new person that's in charge, and I will continue with my own dastardly plans until an opportunity presents itself. In the meantime, I better make sure that things work on Deck 12, or else I'm going in the Agonizer.
Yeah, my commanders are still jerks. We still have to work overtime with no extra pay.
Right.
I love this mirror universe guitar theme that we've been rocking on.
I know,
these
right?
episodes.
It is so good. I remember the first time I heard that, I'm like, holy crap, Terran battle music is the best.
Darth Dragonborn wants to see a war between the Terran Empire and the Confederation. That would actually be interesting.
Space fascists versus space fascists.
Which space fascists will win? Whoever wins. Yeah, that's when the "whoever wins, we lose" tagline becomes
right.
correct. Which turbolift am I taking here? Is this the turn? No, because that door is dark. Ryan wouldn't make a dark door, the one I'm supposed to go to. Yeah, I thought so. It's one of my favorite things that I never noticed about video game design until I started working with you guys and listening to you talk about doing it, about how you guide the characters through the level with like subtle clues like that. Like, don't go this way, there's no lights here.
I have a whole thread about that coming on Twitter soon.
Excellent. If you want long, interesting threads about game design, Jesse is an excellent follow.
I mean, Jesse's an excellent follow even if you don't want those things.
That's true. But if you do want them, he's an especially good follow.
Yeah,
really
I write
thought you'd
other
be safe in
angry
this
stuff
elevator,
too,
didn't
but yeah, I try to do useful and interesting game design stuff from time to time as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that commander. They're just, it's like they're there for that like surprise moment, but of course usually like your bops and allies just run in there and start murdering it. So it's like, well, you thought that was a good idea.
But it just didn't work out. Yeah, there's some stuff. A couple people have asked about Picard changing our story. We'll deal with some of that stuff as it comes up, if we need to. As for stuff from Strange New Worlds, that is all coming, but it'll take time for us to get that stuff ready.
No, it just came out.
Yes.
So our connection with Paramount Global is we have some like leaders, lead types, managerial types, and whatnot who get some information about what's going on, and we do talk back and forth with them about how the Star Trek universe is developing. But it's not on a level that's like, oh, we have 6 months of advance notice about the entire season of Strange New Worlds and every ship that's going to show up in, and every character and every storyline, and therefore we can plan all of our stuff in advance. And building an episode like this isn't the sort of thing that you do in a day.
Yep.
So there's a little bit of lag time for us to catch up.
Yeah. We sometimes get art assets early, like we sometimes have
Right.
ship art early, but we still get stymied by the fact that we need to know what the ship does so Jeremy can develop stats and special powers based off of that. And sometimes we just don't have that info until the show actually airs.
Another set done. Heading to the ones behind that runabout.
Right.
On the upper level.
Why does my sword look like He-Man's sword? Because it's a cool sword.
Because he killed He-Man in glorious combat.
One of these answers is correct.
I don't know, maybe both.
Technically, both of those could be correct.
Well, saying one of them is correct does not necessarily suggest that both of them can be.
Yeah, I suppose it's not a one and only one.
Yeah. The Emperor's
Unless you're
sword, by
saying
the way,
that
if
num
you're
correct equals 1 versus num correct is greater than or equal to 0 or greater than 0.
by the way, if you're one of those people who do cosplay stuff in the Star Trek or STO fandom, the Emperor's sword has some of the best reference of any prop on the internet. Somebody actually took a bunch of pictures of the actual prop, like all the reference photos you could want, and uploaded them. So it's quite wonderful. The people, and by someone I mean the people who made the sword for CBS. Enigma says they should be coming to us for ship design. They are! Didn't you see it?
You're full. Think you can win here?
If I had a strip of Latinum for every time I'd heard that, I could buy a small moon.
That was actually quite the surprise. That because I don't know if other people had heard that Thomas had gotten ship stuff over to CBS, but I was completely unaware, and I thought that was really cool.
I was sworn to absolute secrecy, basically. It was one of those, it came up in a Leeds meeting, like, hey, this might happen, we're sort of talking about it, and then I had to sit on that for like 6 months. It was a really, really cool thing to see happen, though.
Cover you. Get that force field down.
Just sort of a nice, even of everybody on the team's work, a nice validation of everything that everyone's done to make this game so special.
For sure.
That's sword of.
My God.
See, John's good at it too.
Mm-hmm.
There. The console in the back.
But
These people who make impenetrable force fields, Kumarka really needs to stop making consoles outside the force field that control them.
Listen, it's just
in her defense,
physics.
Sorry.
It's just physics. The control has to be outside of it. We don't make the rules.
In her defense, the controls for the inner force field are actually on the inside, which is why you have to just yank out all those chips in order to do it remotely.
I need some dip from all these chips. Oh, nope, that was a bad idea. See,
How
tanking
about-
it doesn't always work.
See, you
How
tried
about
to make a joke and you got shot in the back. That's what happens in the
That's
Terra
what happens in
universe.
the mirror universe. But you know what happens with an icon put here? Dinosaurs.
Yeah, we're gonna end up in a situation where we're gonna be kicking ourselves for the line that Janeway says in Redshift, where she's like, "Your phasers are set to stun. funny. Ours are set to kill, or something like that. I think.
Yeah, no, it was
even...
you like my phaser outranks you or something like that.
That's in Blue Shift. That's my favorite line. But no, I thought it was maybe a reference like their phasers don't have stun settings, but I think that's wrong in hindsight now that I think about it.
Did I manage it? Yes, I did.
So this fight went through a lot of iterations. Like we were able to get the basics of it pretty quickly, but just the amount of damage that those drones do, the like how often Kumarke's defense drones show up, like all those things, like how many Terran ads show up, what attacks can Kumarke do. All of that went through tons of iteration. But like we started that iteration early enough that I think we really were able to just get a good feel again. I mean, obviously that's subjective, but yeah.
How long did you have the bridge layout in place to sort of balance around that?
So we had the overall layout white boxed pretty early. Like the only thing that was, I think, a big question mark for a while was how were we going to do the view screen. But yeah, Nick got that. They got a pretty good layout very quickly.
I mean, the nice thing is it was kind of based off of a previous bridge design, so there's that.
Right, it's based off of the Odyssey design, which is unwieldy. Yeah.
Not really designed to have a laser fight in. I know they're phasers, don't worry.
Yeah, no, it's not built for having a church full of pew-pews.
Juan Pablo Ladron, yes, this is on both Twitch and Facebook.
I mean, the only bridges that should be wieldy are the ones that involve cards.
That's true. This is why we need more Westons, because that was so good.
That shaking on the gun hand, my god.
And Chase's delivery gives me chills.
Yeah. Oh, damn.
Attention all hands. This is Admiral Lita. Kumarke is dead. I am assuming command of this vessel effective immediately. If you disagree...
That's how you take over a ship and have the crew.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Get along. Yeah.
And Janeway did it by herself.
And I mean, to the point back what we were talking about, it's like if you ever wonder why the Terrans are always suspicious of each other, it's because, well, yeah, maybe some people were dumb enough to like go, I refuse, I'm going to fight back, and they get thrown out the airlock by their buddies, but half the people are probably secretly against you still and just know to shut their mouths. Yeah.
Oh, we just left Kumarke's corpse there. That's brutal. Of course, it makes perfect sense that it's there. I just...
That's what the ensigns are for. Clean up aisle 2.
Yeah, they'll transport the body out, Febreze the chair.
Lita gets on the comm and says, "There's nobody on the bridge because I killed them all. Anyone who has bridge training, get up here now."
That was actually my original writing. Was like, well, if I'll need applications for a new bridge crew.
That's hilarious.
Submit your resumes on the shipwide LinkedIn.
Terran LinkedIn.
Oof.
where it's not about linking with people. It's about killing people.
I imagine Terran LinkedIn is about as hospitable as like one of the Chans.
Oh God.
Let's be honest, Terran LinkedIn is just a dating site.
I think it's more like a hookup site. I don't think the Terrans have dating sites.
All right, it's a reconnaissance site because they wouldn't date; they would recon each other.
Yeah, there you go. I don't know what this means, but I'm gonna bet Ryan does. Firefly00 wants to know if the Terrans retained the Bundori tradition from feudal Japan. I have no idea. Did I just ask something filthy on the stream? I'm gonna guess yes.
So, the Emperor's true prize is revealed at last.
Like, look at that facial expression. That's so good. Is there a difference between the Terran social network and one we have right now? Yes, the tiny bit of moderation we now have.
Right.
Oh, God.
But yeah, I'm not going to answer that question, but I appreciate it.
Mike, I think you pissed off the galaxy's largest yo-yo.
Fun fact, it actually shrunk at one point during the movie's development, because originally it was supposed to be 82 AU in diameter and then just became 2 AU in diameter.
Well, that's good, because 82 is pretty insane.
Yeah. 82 times the distance between the sun and the earth.
I mean, on a cosmological level, it's not the biggest thing.
That's true. How big is the Dyson sphere?
That's a good question.
Someone in chat will tell us.
Well,
Probably not 82 AU, though.
Yeah.
no. Okay, so if you want the interior of the Dyson sphere to have the same amount of solar radiation absorbed as the Earth's surface, assuming that you've got the same type of star, main sequence G5, then you want the surface of the Dyson sphere to be the same distance from the star as the surface of the Earth is. So
there it would be 1 AU.
It would be 1 AU. But that's only if the star has the same solar output, and assuming that you don't do any sort of funky magical climatology controls on the surface of this thing, because if you can make a Dyson sphere, you can control your climate however you want.
Yeah.
Dyson spheres, for people who think terraforming is boring.
I feel like all of the times that I played the Rurapenthe TFO, whose name currently escapes me, and put myself on missile duty was... Yes, best served cold. And put myself on missile duty was training for this moment.
This is another thing that went through a whole bunch of iterations. Sometimes they were coming in too fast, sometimes they were coming in too slow. I love the lightning cloud effect that Ian put together.
Yeah. Ruh-roh.
And of course the wands.
I need to go back and watch the motion picture again. It's been too long. So yeah, we're doomed.
The remaster of the motion picture is up on the internet now too, or you can see it on streaming services.
Neat.
It's up-res to 4K, new effects shots.
By the way, for that Acheron cutscene, I told Weston to channel his inner Zeph.
Ah. No, I pulled myself too far out of range.
If you got shot by the Acheron, it helps you knock you out of range.
Ah, okay, that would be
But
what
also-
happened then.
It also
I tried to make
75% of your hull off.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're late. Ready to get out of here?
You survived.
Clearly.
But at least look at all the damage you've done to it.
Not very much.
Immune. Of course, the real question is, why doesn't the fleet make all their ships out of that?
Yeah, that's a good question. Because
Same
they can.
Same reason Captain America only had the one shield.
Yeah. Ancient Mariner 42 has been asking a few times on the Vulcan Talkir you see among the Emperor's fleet. Is there a story coming to explain that? I can't remember.
Well,
Among the Emperor's fleet or among the Coalition fleet?
I don't know. He said the Emperor's fleet, but it might be... If it's among the Coalition fleet, that makes sense.
Well, the Terrans did their best while we worked to get the...
And I know Thomas has been in the process of doing a lot of ship uprising and reviews of stuff, so I wouldn't be surprised if the artists pick out ships based on personal interest from time to time.
Yeah.
It might have been something else going on, because I noticed at one point in the fight the USS Innsbruck was showing up as an enemy.
Oh.
The other is conflicted.
I figured you just got hit by a weapon that confused your targeting systems or something.
That's likely what happened.
Mhm. Scramble sensors, most likely.
But
Yep,
I will look into the Talkir issue.
I'm really curious about the history of the other, since it doesn't seem like the Terran Empire would send out a Voyager probe.
One of the most dangerous starships in existence, but
Well, I guess you'll find out eventually.
I am excited, yeah.
Dang, you're right. If only we'd thought of that.
Oh, yeah. You thought of that.
the Coalition could do a lot of good with a ship like that. But we'll keep up. Thanks. And speaking of that good work, I'll be getting back to it shortly.
Cool. Thanks, buddy.
I understand the concern over me being dead. Of course, Terrans know I'm alive now as well. That'll make don't mention it.
I'll just go through these quick, because... Hey, come in. Alright. I gotta speak with Lita. I love that chair sitting animation.
I expect I'll have to deal with a few would-be captains and their attempts to end me. Too bad Ilea wasn't able to talk some sense into the other.
Alright. And that is the two new stories. Oh, wait, we got a cutscene here. I actually haven't had a chance to play the calling, so I haven't seen this yet.
Security bioscan complete. Access granted.
Computer, transport object 53 Sigma to my location.
Wagger.
Hello, old friend.
Ruh-roh.
What? Lita had an ulterior motive all along?
What a shock. What a shock and a surprise. Solak42 has suggested we get Jeffrey Combs to play the other, and I'm down with that.
Yeah,
I still want an episode that's just all Jeffrey Combs.
King of Combs.
nobody
Yeah.
noticed the Band-Aid on the back of Ilea's head, a la Marcellus Wallace and Glow coming out of Anyway.
That's wonderful. Let's see. Looney Welsh, I have no idea what you might be talking about. What elite bridge officer training tokens? Don't know what that could be. Sounds super exciting, whatever it is. Jeffrey Combs for the Terran Emperor. Maybe it's Jeffrey Combs. We haven't said who that's going to be yet. All right, cool. Well, folks, those were some awesome episodes. Thank you for taking me through them. Any other fun or exciting comments or stories you've got about them before we raid on to somebody else?
Brain is blanking.
Yeah, I got nothing.
All right. That's fine with me.
Not that there aren't any. It's like being in an interview with do you have any questions for us? And I'm like,
Yeah. What's
Thanks
your
for asking me that after hours and hours of grilling.
yeah? What's your biggest weakness?
First time.
Answering
Saying,
questions when I'm put on the spot.
Yeah.
Bullets.
Bullets are my biggest weakness. uh,
Time is my biggest weakness.
yes.
The herb.
All right. Well, there's somebody here who seems pretty cool, and they said they're on the road to getting 100 followers. So let's see if we can help them get there.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they're playing through the calling right now.
Because
Ooh.
Blizzard is getting.
Did you ever get
Doused.
to use your Terran knife? Or did
I did try to use it a few times, but I think I got it in once.
Instead, he used his big sword.
Yes, I love using my sword. I play Star Trek Online as a melee character.
remember?
Did you get? Don't forget to get your daggers.
So...
No, really. Look at the loot.
Oh, do I get more daggers? Oh yeah, Ushantor. Right.
Congratulations, General.
All right.
Remember what Leon the Professional said is the knife is the final weapon you learn to use.
Yeah. Right after the blaster beam.
Right?
All right.
Pro, knives for a pro.
Well, folks, thank you so much for joining me. I had a lot of fun. I hope you did too. And everybody in chat, thank you so much for joining me as well. And we will see you all. Yeah, I will see you all next week. And then I'm going to go on vacation for a while. Vacation and moving my house. So there probably won't be any streams during that time. But we will see you when I get back in early June. All right.
When he says moving his house, he means like the movie Up.
Yes, I'm just attaching a bunch of balloons to it and getting out of here. So I'll see you all soon. Turquoise Sea, no, if that's still available, don't buy it. It's a bug. It shouldn't be there yet. All right. And bye-bye, everyone. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Good to see you. Bye-bye.